What's up guys, Agent here again with another video, and today we're going to be discussing a very common issue on both PCs and console version, and that is the issue of lag. So lag is definitely something that a lot of players have experienced at one time or another. Some people get it much worse, other people's not so much. I'm relatively fortunate, generally speaking. When I play ESO, I don't normally lag too badly. However, those of you guys who might not have the best internet connections, or who might be playing from perhaps other countries trying to get onto the EU server or the NA server, you guys might experience a bit of lag. So this video is basically going to be covering why lag might happen to you and what a couple of steps you might be able to take in order to kind of counteract the lag a little bit, at the very least to the extent that you're able to do so. So what lag basically is the way the internet works, and this is a very simplified version, by the way. So this does not, I am not by any means any sort of like internet expert when it comes to like hardware and software and stuff. I know a little bit, but I wouldn't really say that my knowledge necessarily exceeds your average person out on the streets. But generally speaking, what lag is basically a delay between when your information goes from your computer, basically where you're sitting right now, to the server where all sorts of calculations are being done, and then back to you, so that way you can recognize, your computer can recognize that your input was registered, you have an output coming out, and that's going back to you. So this is basically what's known as a ping rate. So some of you guys might have heard of ping rate. That is basically when your computer pings the server. So what happens is your server basically sends that input in a little bit of an information package, sometimes known as a packet of information. So that packet basically goes to the server in a certain amount of time. That is considered the ping rate. Then it comes back to your server, or back to your computer, I should say, from your server, and the computer knows, okay, this is what happened on the server side of things. That ping rate is basically the time that takes from that packet of information to go from the server back to you. So in this instance, you can see here with the ping rate that I have right now of 434, this is in milliseconds, by the way. So this is taking 434 milliseconds right now for that packet of information from my computer going to this is the PTS server, then back to me. So basically I have a delay of about a little less than a half a second between when I input something and when it happens. So for example, if I go ahead and hit my left mouse button right now, it's about a half a second delay between I hit my mouse button and when my light attacks actually register. So over here you can see this is my left button. You can see that it's not registering right away. So as soon as it's not registering as soon as I hit the button. So again, got a little bit more pronounced here. You can see that's a little bit delayed here, and that's basically what lag is here. So the higher your ping rate is, the more lag you're going to be seeing. That's colloquially what we call lag. It's basically a very high ping rate. Now, some people have what are called lag spikes, and this is basically when your ping rate jumps up several hundred to several thousands. So for example, if you get a ping spike of up to 4,000 milliseconds, that means for a brief moment of time, something happened with your packet of information that was sent from your computer to the server, that it got delayed or something like that. Maybe one of the jumps that it made to various nodes along its path was interrupted for whatever reason, and that's called a ping spike. Here we have no ping spikes, it's just a consistently high ping. So you can think of it like this. You have your packet of information. Let's call that like a package from Amazon that you happen to purchase. And your computer, let's say, is the delivery driver. So your Amazon package, when low ping rates, basically means that the driver is able to get directly to your door, drop off your package, and come back easy peasy, nothing really happening there. A high ping rate basically means your driver needs to take a much longer path. Potentially. There's obviously, again, this is an oversimplification of things, but generally speaking, generally means that you're taking a longer path, or your path is congested. There might be other Amazon drivers that are trying to get to various places around your city block that are all using the same path that your Amazon driver is taking. So that's what would be a high ping rate, so basically think of it like a congested street, and then a ping spike would be like as though your Amazon driver happened to come across a roadwork or a traffic accident that wasn't really on Google Maps, so they have to take a little bit of extra time to navigate around that in order to get everything there and back. So that would be kind of like a ping spike. Again, very basic, very general kind of overview of what ping is. But of course, you guys don't want to know what ping is and what lag spikes are. You guys kind of want to know what the title of this video is. How do you deal with ping? So right now, I am artificially creating high ping for myself. I'm basically using what's known as a virtual private network, a VPN. I'm sure you guys have heard all about this if you guys watch any videos from big YouTubers. NordVPN, ExpressVPN, all those services there. So basically what I did was I basically said, hey, computer, I'm actually going to try to log in from a New Zealand server here. So this ping rate is what you would see if you were to play from New Zealand. So about 400 ping, which is pretty much on the nose to what one of my friends who used to play ESO would get. And for ping, it's normally she would play with around 300, 400 ping. So pretty what you would expect here. Now, obviously ping has a lot of effects on the game. Your input lag is one of the biggest ones. Basically what that means is the time it takes for you to input an ability on your keyboard versus when it actually registers on your screen is lengthened. So again, we have about 400 ping, so we're having about a 0.4 seconds between when I hit the button and when it registers. Now, half a second doesn't seem like a lot, but let me tell you, when you're doing a rotation, like a full rotation, like on a stamina DPS, like I am here, you're going to notice it. So for example, let's go ahead and do just a very quick demonstration of the rotation here. In order to see just how slow it is, kind of much slower this is compared to other parses that I might have done, you might have seen on my channel. So you can see here that it actually takes quite a bit of time to get everything off. So how do you sort of go about this? Does this mean you can't do high DPS? You're basically locked out of all hard content because you have very high ping and you're not able to do it. I will tell you right now that high ping definitely is going to reduce your DPS. No, just because of how it works. You know, your character is taking longer to get things around. However, as long as you're not having ping spikes, you can acclimate yourself to that sort of delay. Is it going to suck? Yes. Are you going to have a harder time getting higher DPS? Yes. But it is possible to kind of adjust for the ping based on, you know, how much ping you have. As long as it's consistent, you should be able to adapt fairly well. So here I'm just going to do a very quick, you know, maybe 30-second parse or so. We'll see just how high of DPS we can do. Then I will log out, return my VPN off, so I'll be playing from the US where the PTS server is located, so I should have higher ping. Log back onto this exact character and do another 30 seconds parse so you guys can see exactly what I'm doing. So basically, I've already done quite a few rotations through the rotation itself, so I'm kind of used to the actual speed I have to go through in order to click the buttons and get a fluid rotation. It's not going to be fast, it's not going to be great, but at the very least it will be as fluid as you can get with this high ping rate. Again, it is definitely slower. We'll go until our potion pops up again. So around here, we're sitting about 60k DPS or so once we got our second potion up. But you'll see that even though it was choppy, it was laggy, it was at the very least fluid. I was able to get my abilities off relatively well, and that's just because I did practice my rotation quite a bit, and because my ping is consistent, I'm able to kind of adjust a little bit. So yes, your DPS is definitely going to be lower, but like I said, you can adjust for this. So now I need to log completely out to desktop here. I wonder what's going to show up here. So here is an example of VPN. So I'm using TunnelBear right now. So before I turn this off, one thing I will mention here is that VPNs will help out your ping a little bit, and that's just because or I should say, there's a good chance it'll help out your ping. It's not guaranteed that it'll help out your ping, but it has a very good chance of helping out your ping here. So again, this is TunnelBear. This is just one of many different VPN services out there. So if you're living, for example, let's say in Switzerland, you might be able to VPN into the United States where the PTS server is located, or you might just log into the EU server instead. So let's go ahead and turn off our VPN here. So now we're back in the US. We're going to log back into ESO. And we're going to do the exact same thing we did before, do the rotation until our potion comes back up, and we'll take a look at how much DPS difference there is. You might be surprised to find that it's actually not that big of a difference here, but I'll let you guys see for yourself. But unfortunately, that's probably the only real thing you're able to do in order to help combat ping. Now, for console players, obviously you guys don't have access to VPNs. Plus, you're also bogged down with the fact that console hardware is definitely more limited in power than computer hardware. Over the past few years, we've managed to get better and better CPU processing power. But of course, the PS4, the Xbox One, has been pretty much made with the exact same chips. And so their computing powers pretty much remain exactly the same from release up till now. It might have been a couple of iterations that might have improved processing power, but generally speaking, the processing power of your computer chips that exist in your PS4 or Xbox One are definitely weaker than a typical computer chip that you'd find on a gaming computer. A Ryzen 3600, for example, 3600X, or an Intel, I think it's a i7-9700K. Those have significantly more processing power than your CPU in a console. So unfortunately, console players, combined with your bad hardware, along with just general lag issues, a lot of this stuff you're not going to be able to do VPN, and so the only thing you're able to really do is basically get a sense for how much lag there is, how much input lag there is, and then adjust your rotation speed accordingly to kind of match that. But for PC players, if you have access to the VPN, I would recommend trying out a VPN. It could help out. So you can see here, oops. There we go. You can see here that my ping rate is a lot better now. It's sitting at around 100, which is normally what I would get ping-wise here on the server. So basically, my input time has been cut down by a quarter compared to when I was VPN'd into New Zealand. See, it's a lot more fluid because my ping's a lot lower. But we'll see whether that actually makes a difference with our parts. And it definitely will, but the question is how much of a difference it's going to make. Help if I actually did my part correctly. Alright, so our potion's back up, and we got about 67k or so. So if you go ahead and take the difference there, we got 60k with the New Zealand ping of about 400, 450, and we got 67k here with a much lower ping rate of anywhere between 80 to 100. So we're losing out on about, what, 10% DPS or so, a little bit more than 10,000, 7,000 DPS, or 10% DPS loss, just from ping itself. So, like I said, you're never going to be able to necessarily get to that same DPS level as other players, but as you get used to playing with that ping, you'll be able to acclimate yourself and get your DPS higher and higher just by sort of adjusting your rotation to kind of account for that ping rate. When I first started the rotation, making this video and getting myself used to it, I was hitting pretty low DPS with the Stamina Nightblade. But as I got used to when I should hit my abilities to kind of get, make things flow, that's when my DPS started going up. So if you're not able to use a VPN because of financial purposes or whatever other reason you might have, then your best bet is probably going to be kind of just practice your rotation a lot on the dummy. Hopefully your ping is stable and you don't have random ping spikes, and then kind of get used to the timings. It's best to kind of slow things down if you have lag, which is something they always recommend players do when they're starting to learn the rotation. Slow things down. You're able to see more clearly when things are slowing down, when you need to hit certain buttons, and when things start to flow together. So that's the first piece of advice. The second piece of advice is to actually consider getting a VPN if you don't have one already, and if you do have one, consider VPNing into a country, either the United States for NA servers, or I believe it's Germany for the EU servers, to see if that helps out your ping a little bit. Now, the danger with the VPN is that it's obviously not always going to work. When I was living in my previous apartment, I used a VPN to get into a different server in the US because my ping was bad, and while that stabilized my ping, it didn't necessarily make it any better. So one of the things that a VPN does is if you have ping spikes, it can help address those, and if you have really high ping, you might be able to get a little bit better ping because there's a possibility at the very least that you're using more efficient routes. So remember the Amazon driver, when you're using a VPN, your Amazon driver might be able to find a better route compared to the one that it usually uses that's a little bit less congested, for example. So you might get better ping that way, but it's no guarantee that a more efficient route actually exists on a VPN. But it's always worth a shot. Plus, VPNs are always good for just internet privacy in general. So I would recommend, if you can afford it, to get a VPN. A lot of VPN services are relatively cheap. They're, at the very least, the one that I'm using, TunnelBear. You can usually get it for maybe about $5 a month, which for the VPN, just the privacy, might actually be worth getting, but it's kind of up to you whether you want to run a VPN or not. And obviously the third and absolute last-ditch resort would be to get better internet. So part of the reason why some players might have higher ping might be because of bandwidth issues, actually. So going back to the Amazon driver with the package analogy, maybe the Amazon driver is only able to deliver a teeny tiny package versus another Amazon driver which has better internet, which can deliver a much larger package. Or another way to think of it is maybe the Amazon driver with a low bandwidth speed has like a really dinky old truck, 10-year-old truck, versus some Amazon driver that has very high bandwidth package might have a very large truck. Another way to think about it is low bandwidth. You might be taking old roads, gravel roads. Your speed limit might be low, 30 miles per hour. High bandwidth, you might be able to use the highways. You might be able to have higher speed limits that way. So a couple different ways that bandwidth and internet ISPs, service providers, are able to kind of limit your bandwidth. Of course, that is a last resort because obviously that is the most expensive, and obviously it's not necessarily going to be the best option for everybody, or even an option for anybody. So my personal advice is, if you are dealing with lag, and I have had issues with lag back when I lived in my previous apartment, is to slow everything down. Don't try to speed things through like you see with YouTube videos. So you can see here my ping, while it's not fantastic, it's not the greatest, it's pretty decent. Don't try to do things at the speed that I'm doing on my build videos. Slow things down, figure out the timings for your abilities, and just kind of work through that. That's probably the best piece of advice I can give anybody who's dealing with lag. The second piece of advice is obviously to try out a VPN. A lot of VPN services do give you like a month's free trial, so it's always worth trying it out and seeing whether it works. And if it does work, then you can make the consideration as to whether it's financially feasible for you to continue a VPN subscription service. But that is it for this video. If you guys have any questions at all, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. As for looking for other players that deal with high ping or high lag and how you might be able to deal with it, I recommend checking out any console players. They usually have to deal with much worse ping rates than the endgame players on PC. So definitely check those guys out. There are other strategies to kind of reduce overall lag and frame rates, but those, generally speaking, will involve add-ons, which I don't have. There are quite a few add-ons here that might be able to help out. So, for example, under Bandit's UI, you can actually hide everybody. So that's Khajiit mode, so you'll be able to hide everybody. But those, generally speaking, are not going to help out lag per se, it'll help out frames. That's why we didn't really talk about those in this video. But I hope you guys found this video informative nonetheless, and I will see you guys in the next dungeon.